risks to both individuals and species.
Sex is a very expensive and time-consuming process. Humans are well aware of the effort involved. Most of us from birth, or early adolescence anyway, are preoccupied with finding a mate, keeping a mate, and so on. There's also the cost, I should say, of infectious elements. Obviously, sex is a very intimate connection between two organisms, and so viruses and parasites that make their living by living inside other organisms, in our bodies, for example, like the AIDS virus and so on, they have seized upon the sexual act as an opportunity to transfer themselves. But there are other costs that are kind of hidden beneath the surface, which are actually more important from the point of view of the theory of evolution. These are the genetic costs, the fact that a female, by taking just one cell from her mate, the sperm cell, ends up reducing her genetic representation in her offspring by 50%. So that's a 1/2 dilution in her genes to the next generation. So this is a big genetic cost of sex. Then there are also just the costs of males. That is, males take up roughly half the population in most species, but they don't produce anything. The rule in nature is that males do basically nothing.
Life is full of males that consume much and contribute little, but their importance can't be completely disregarded.
It's important to think of males as being more than simply a repository of sperm. Males are more than a bag of sperm. The behavior of the male is absolutely essential for normal reproductive functioning of a female. So if females are housed with males that are not sexually active, those females will not go through the necessary physiological events that are required to produce offspring. Now, in a sexual species, the male's behavior is very important for the normal reproductive functioning of a female. Females that are isolated from males very rarely ovulate. They need to see males, they need to be courted by males in order to show the normal neuroendocrine kinds of changes that are necessary to support reproduction.
For human beings, the question is more complicated, partly because we can't seem to shake the idea that men have always dominated society. But it was probably Wilma and not Fred who was running things.
I suspect that the sexual activity of early hominids was quite different than what we see in modern society. First, females were probably sexually much more assertive than is the case today. And secondly, female social relations were probably much more crucial to the social structure of early hominid groups. I think that the characteristic pattern of males to be interested in sex rather continuously was probably the same then as it is today. But it was females that regulated the sexual activity by initiating sex with males when they were interested in it and not engaging in sex when they weren't. What has changed in humans is that they appear to be more specialized for sex than is the case in other primates. So that we have signals like breasts, lack of body hair with body hair accentuating the genitals and erogenous areas.
But for humans, sex goes beyond simple pleasure.
The importance of sex in people's lives really varies. Sex is very important in adolescence. Then if you find a nice partner and you're married, you don't think much about it then. Then sex is like money. It becomes important if you don't have it. If you don't have a relationship or if a person isn't functioning well, then sex becomes extremely important and sort of takes over their whole lives and people can't think of anything else. But when things go well, it's part of natural living. We're the only species which is always ready to have sex, any season, any time of the month. And that has had some social consequences because rules and regulations and incest taboos had to be formed. Otherwise, we would be having sex with everyone all the time. So much of our social laws are for the control of the sex drive in its proper channels. Otherwise, society would be chaotic.
Some societies have tried to keep that chaos at bay by pretending sex was not a major force in our lives.
There have been enormous advances in the last 25 years. Before that, the scientific study of sex was impossible, and we were in the Dark Ages.
As we go along, let us study the male anatomy. Most men know less about their own bodies than they do about their automobiles.
Don't forget, masturbation was considered a disease, and doctors and educators and psychologists would tie the kids' hands down, use electric shock and worse to try to eradicate this disease.
As late as 1959, half the seniors at 5 Pennsylvania medical schools believed masturbation would lead to insanity. 1 in 5 of their professors believed the same thing. And not one American medical college offered even a single course on human sexuality.
We're totally in a different place. Today, a person who can't have erections or trouble having feelings, sexual desire, can get help because we know the hormones that are involved. We know the psychological factors that are involved.
Perhaps the greatest surprise in recent research has been the influence that genes and chemistry have on all aspects of our behavior. The search is now on for biological factors in gender preference.
Many homosexuals show some sadness and pain or disturbance with their fathers and other males. But on the other hand, there are also homosexuals who seem to have a perfectly normal development. So I think we're dealing with a multi-causal phenomenon. Some people, their sexual preference is determined genetically, and in other cases it may just be preference or social choice, and I don't know. And it's not a disease, so we don't look for a cause. But I think there are many conditions under which a person will grow up preferring their own gender. I think we have to accept that human sexuality varies widely.
In the game of life, the odds are terrible. Especially if you're a human sex cell. At best, your chances of becoming a person are 1 in millions. The human sperm, carrying half the genes necessary for a new life, must swim the equivalent of 3 miles upstream. From a starting field of 200 million sperm, only 500 even get near the goal. Human eggs have a different battle, mainly old age. Unlike sperm, which are made constantly, all the eggs a woman will ever have are formed when she is still in the womb. By the time she is born, her eggs will already have dwindled from about 20 million to 3 million. By puberty, the gametes will have further reduced to perhaps 300,000, and only 300 will ever have the chance of being viable. Their chances decrease with age. To increase the odds, researchers have developed techniques that allow